All right, how is everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning in to the Rich CELENZA Show. So, I'm going to call this podcast, Is Meditation Legit or Full of Shit? So, previously I did a podcast on the law of attraction, and I actually worded it very similar. I said, is the law of attraction legit or full of shit? It was one of my biggest successes as far as my podcast. So I thought I might do something on meditation. I'm going to first read meditation as far as what it is described actually as. And it's a practice where an individual uses a technique such as mindfulness or focusing their mind on a particular object, thought, or activity to train attention and awareness and achieve a mental clear and emotionally calm and stable state. That's according to Wikipedia, which I find quite interesting. So what I'm going to kind of get into is what I've studied over the years regarding meditation. And I was just working out in Linwood, Washington State at a 24-hour fitness gym. And I walked into a sauna and a guy was doing meditation. And I'm like, wow, I used to really kind of be obsessed with mastering meditation. And I think a lot of people that work out or are really into the mind or, maybe even yoga or many different things, start to practice, obviously that, meditation or meditating. And I think a lot of people start and they quit or they get frustrated or they get bored and go back and forth regarding it. And I think I was one of those people, but I'll kind of back up right now to like 2009. And I was listening to The Law of Attraction, or I actually watched the movie like a lot of people, then read the book. I loved it. The only thing is I did find some things a little ridiculous regarding the Law of Attraction. And if you get a chance, you might even want to check out my podcast regarding that. I really think the Law of Attraction should be actually called the Law of the Attack. Because if you think you're going to sit around and wait for things that come to you, you're out of your fucking mind. That's a whole nother thing. But now, back to meditation, it kind of like funneled from there because you're kind of thinking different thoughts about yourself. When you learn about The Secret or the Law of Attraction or any of these things, you really start to, I guess you could become a little more self-aware. And what happened with me, it all kind of happened, and I was very fortunate on one end, and maybe somebody else wouldn't think I was fortunate, but I went through a hard time. I got a divorce, then I started to travel a lot by myself. And I ended up even moving to California with my cousin. I'd bounce between California and Florida because my kids lived in Florida. I'd be with my cousin in California, and I started to travel. And when I say I traveled, I would travel for months at a time. And if I wasn't in Florida visiting my kids, I was usually gone. And I don't mean like for weeks. I'm talking 3 weeks to a month at a time. I'd go all over to North America. I'd go to Canada as well. I'd go for like 2 weeks, come back for a few days, back 2 weeks, go 3 weeks, New York, Boston. I once did like a 28-day run. Many times I've been gone for months at a time. I'm not even going to get into that. But what I started to learn regarding meditation was, or just learning to control your mind is what I should say regarding this podcast too, is we're kind of cluttered and we're really busy thinking about a lot of bullshit I talk about. A lot of nonsense flows through our heads. I don't know if we're programmed that way. We're always, not always, but a lot of times thinking of all the problems, all the bills we're going to have, all the anxiety, what's going to happen next. That could go if you're married, if you have kids, even if you're not married, you're divorced. You could, you're thinking about maybe even your parents getting older. You may have issues within your own household. You may have children that are sick. My daughters, one of them had a liver transplant. The other one is type 1 diabetes. So I know what it is to kind of understand that aspect of it. There's always something going on, and a lot of times it's not good, right? Or you're thinking it's not good. But when I was able to be alone for long periods of time, for one, it just made me think about the history of man, and I wondered going back hundreds of years, like when we were basically hunters, and how I would think that we had to be around a lot of calmness, because I would think most of our job was survival. Hunt, gather food, be quiet so something doesn't attack you and eat you, and vice versa. You're out there hunting so you can get food. Or you could be getting vegetables or fruits, whatever the case may be. I think they spent a lot of time alone. I'm sure they were in groups as well. hunting to protect one another, but I'm sure there was a quietness to their life. They didn't have, obviously, televisions. They didn't have radio. They didn't have internet. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have, the things we have now to distract us from our mind, and what they're kind of programming us as well, we don't even realize it a lot of times, is everything else is just kind of coming at us constantly, and we're just, taking it all in. We just don't have the time to just shut it all out. Now, I shut it all out because I'm kind of nuts like that. So this is really before I had an iPhone, but I wasn't really watching YouTube. So I wrote 2 books, actually, because I just finished up writing like 4 screenplays, and I knew I was exhausted doing that. So when I traveled a lot in an airplane or in a hotel by myself, or just being in a Barnes & Noble, a library, Starbucks, coffee house, Italian restaurant, I was usually writing or taking notes, writing my books. But when I wasn't doing that, I wasn't the type of guy to be sitting in a hotel watching TV all day. I hate commercials. I did go to the movies quite often, at least 3 times a week. That I did do. But when I wasn't doing that, what I started to do, I really started to learn on an airplane, because my flights are very long. So even yesterday I took a 6-hour flight. I actually took a 4-hour and then a 2. Before that, I took like a 3-hour flight. Tomorrow, I'm in Washington State. I will be taking probably about a 5.5-hour flight. I may have a layover. Not sure. Actually, I don't know about that one. But it will be a lot of flying from Washington State all the way to Florida. And when I go on a plane, I didn't always want to go on the internet. That's when I would get my most work done. Still to this day, even me creating my new program, Mastering Self-Confidence, or creating ideas for my podcast, or video ideas, and then editing videos on an airplane, what I loved is, for the most part, unless kids are screaming or someone's trying to talk to you, total silence, tranquility, the freedom of not having to talk, and usually for the most part, if you put headphones, no one bothering you or talking to you as well. Now, a lot of people immediately go on their computer or their iPad or their phone and watch movies throughout that. For some reason, I don't do that. Sometimes I do watch sports on there, depending on what time it is. I like to catch highly questionable. I'm not a big around the horn fan, but I do love Pardon the Interruption. So if it's around those times, I will watch it. But other than that, a lot of times I'd either sleep, or I would basically just kind of fall into a trance. And I wouldn't say it was meditation, because when I started to realize at the beginning with meditation is, it truly put me to sleep. Anytime I would just like sit there, relax, calmness your thinking, clear your mind, and focus in on one thing, or just darkness, calmness, relax, be in that state of mind where it's, you're just in the moment, right? And when I did that, I would be zonked out. So I kept falling asleep. What started to work for me was, and I didn't realize this about myself as time went on, and you may want to try this, is I realized a lot of times when I was trying to meditate or just trying to think about certain things, a lot of them weren't things that I wanted to think about. They were things that were either aggravating me, or I was analyzing things that could go for work, my family life, if I was dating somebody, my work schedule. I'm pissed off about what maybe I didn't make it in the film industry, or I'm pissed off at who knows. But that's what I felt a lot of times, and I think a lot of men and women feel the same thing. I call them the analyzers, because all you're doing in your brain is analyzing the same shit over and over and over, day after day, hour after hour. Same old bullshit, not much changes. And you walk around aggravated a lot of the times. You're not really feeling that good. Or you feel good at different times, but, it's like bullshitty. And it's not that you feel bad either all the time. Let me get a glass of water here. Actually, this is Gatorade. I like it. Hold on a second. So, but now I work out constantly, or a lot, almost every day, and I would be going in the sauna. Saunas are incredible for you, just in case you don't know it. I don't like to talk to people in the sauna. I don't like that chit-chat bullshit. And believe me, I have no problem with talking to anybody. I'm extremely, extremely introverted. People don't know that about me. They actually think I'm extremely extroverted, which I am that as well. I'm kind of both. It's just my upbringing. That's obviously why I have a job where I could just travel for weeks or months at a time and really talk to no one. On the phone, I'll talk to my daughters, my mother and my father, and my girlfriend. That's it. Sometimes I'll go days and days, unless I'm ordering food or talking to somebody at an airport or at the hotel. I don't talk to anybody. It would be more or less social media driven, where I post something or I see something. That would be it. So back to kind of the sauna and going in there and kind of just going in there and just closing my eyes and relaxing. And I have a close friend that loves to do meditation when he's in a sauna, kind of what I saw today earlier. That's what made me want to do this podcast. So we once had a discussion. He says, you just don't like to meditate. And he was absolutely right. I realized after 10 years after doing it for many, many years, I felt it was a waste of time for me. Now, I think, and I've seen studies where guys said, you can meditate for 30 seconds. A lot of people think you got to do 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever it's not true, I don't think. It's whatever you want to make it to be. But I will say this much, though, what I learned about what helped me regarding, I guess, meditation. And I just did it on an airplane. So I had those 2 long flights, or 4 hours and 2 hours. One was long. And I fell asleep for part of it. But what I start to do now is I can sit and think. And I just did a podcast on this. It's called Lay Down and Think, or Sit Down and Think. I can think about things that I want to do and that I enjoy doing and that I plan on doing. But it's not an anxiety type thing where if I don't get it done, I'm mad at myself, or I'm putting unrealistic deadlines, or beating myself up. Why haven't I done it already? Or why do you keep doing things incorrectly? And because I think I was always constantly trying to be a perfectionist and critiquing myself on every level, from the way I dressed, the way I worked out, everything. My father has that component. And I drove myself, I think, crazy year after year. And it's interesting because now when I do these podcasts, or I don't edit them at all. And I usually just pick a subject. I don't have a computer in front of me or anything. I just read that quote out of my phone. But I just like to freelance it. And especially when I do a YouTube, I edit it because I just don't want to go on and on and on. But I say, this is me. This is who you are. I'm not trying to make a perfect edit, perfect audio. And I went through that even making my films. I didn't have the budget to make the films I wanted. And I was always pissed off. I could never edit what I wanted to add, or be in the editing room as long as I wanted, or I was in there too long. I just always have an issue. And I think a lot of people have a lot of issues with themselves. But when it comes to your mind, I think we're beating ourselves up. And if you just learn how to first just sit down, calm yourself. For one, learn to be alone. And I don't mean just alone for I'm alone for a half an hour, or I get 20 minutes away and I could do this or that. Or when I'm in the car, I'm alone. Yeah, well, you're blasting tunes, or you're listening to commercials, or you're just not thinking. You just don't have, I think a lot of people just are not structured to calm down and be comfortable in silence. And that is a gift, I promise you, because the more silent I think it is a lot of times around a lot of people, the more you'll start thinking and becoming self-aware of who you truly are and what you truly want. But you're usually just constantly distracted. And I was one of those people, and I think most of society is, especially with the cell phone now. And I'm one of them too now. I've realized I'm on YouTube. I fell in love with YouTube now the last couple of years, especially now that I got the premium, no commercials. I'm watching videos, but I've actually had to stop myself and say, wow, when I'm home, I'm even constantly watching them. Even if I'm with my girlfriend or my own kids, I'm walking to a mall, I'm watching a video here, listening to a video here. I had to learn to say, wait a minute, you got to calm down here. You've got to understand you're on other people now. But it's hard when you travel alone for long periods of time and then you come home and you immediately have to adapt to being around a lot of people. I know that sounds crazy, but it is true. But I got so good, I'm going to say this regarding meditating, or whatever you want to call it. I remember it happening in Edmonton, Canada, so I was really getting good at it. And I was really being alone again. This was a different time, actually, when I was in Edmonton. One time I was there for a month straight, and it was crazy. It was freezing. But this time I went, and I sat on the bed, and I just said, let me just sit and think right now. Like after I ate breakfast, I just said, let me think a minute. I have some time here. I sat on the bed, and I said, I want to think about things I want to do, like I was describing earlier, what I want to accomplish, but who I really want to be, what's the future really look like. And then I just said, and I tell myself a lot of times, just shut the fuck up. I did a podcast on that as well, learning to tell yourself to shut the fuck up, because we're always in our minds going on and on, arguing with ourselves, discussing things we should be doing, then arguing that it may be wrong for us, or we're being lazy, all these different type of things. But I just sat there, closed my mind. I used to tell myself to shut up and just think in total clarity, understand I'm in the moment, relax. And I'm always the guy who kind of closes his eyes. Even when I talk, I don't know if it's from a prayer thing. I don't know what it is. I have to stop, or I'm blinking a lot. But when I close my eyes, if I go into a sauna, a steam room, even when I work out a lot of times, I close my eyes. I just envision things. So what I started to do was I was sitting on the bed. I can sit there for an hour, nonstop, just, again, not doing anything, but being in total awareness of what I was doing. It was almost like I felt like I was almost floating. And I've had those goofy out-of-body experiences when I've worked out before. It's kind of like athletes, they say they have them sometimes when they're just almost looking down at themselves and something's going on. They're playing sports and they're like, oh my God, I'm watching myself. When things are just clicking and you're in the zone and you're not even thinking about doing it, you are just doing it. You're in the moment and you are fluent. Nothing can stop you. Your mind, your body, everything is just kind of in total sync with everything going on. But I was able to just sit there and calm myself down. And so, to make a long story short, I started to do that, and I really started to master that. And then I finally came to the conclusion regarding meditation for me is that this is boring me to death. I didn't see the results, really, because I thought doing a lot of meditation, too, would help me with a lot of things like my nerves or the way I see things, or maybe it's better for your heart or your blood pressure and all these things. Maybe it did, but I'll tell you something. I think a lot of times we're convinced to do things that we think are right for us or that are healthy that may not work for you. And that's one thing I wanted to say here is meditation is not for everybody. Just like lifting weights isn't for everybody, just like jogging isn't for everybody, and just like surfing isn't for everybody, or whatever a lot of people love to do and they claim it's a game changer, isn't really always a game changer for that specific individual. And I want people to understand that. Keep an open mind regarding that. I think sometimes meditation may or may not work, but you just sitting down again, if you want to do that, like I was saying, and just thinking about, and I'm not saying good thoughts like it's corny, like, oh my God, think of the butterfly. Oh, think about all the things I have and grateful. You should think about that automatically. Hopefully you know that. How lucky we are to be in our country, how lucky we are to be healthy, how lucky we are to, live a life. But I do also sometimes think a lot of people are not happy with who they are, or they're stuck in a shell, I call it, which is their body. A lot of people think that everybody else is like somebody else, like themselves. Like you can turn the corner and everything's going to be good. But a lot of people may be born into this body and have this mind that doesn't fit who they are or who they want to be, and maybe what they don't want to look or what they want to look like. That could be a weight issue, a physical issue, a mental issue. I don't know. So if you take all these crazy things I'm kind of saying into one, is figure out for yourself what works for you. That goes for if the law of attraction, if that works for you, God bless. If meditation works, God bless. Working out works for you, God bless. If not working out works out for you, good for you. You need to figure all that shit out. I would say if you want to live a healthier, long life, I would start thinking about what you're doing to help your body. Especially if you want to live longer. But I've talked about this before. I had immigrant grandparents, especially my grandmother, lived, I think, 93 or 94 years old, never exercised, was way overweight, was the worst eater I've ever seen, and she was a machine and outlived everybody. I mean, even sick people in her family. I mean, it's amazing how she survived. But I think the trick with her is she had literally 100 grandchildren. I don't know how many right now. She has probably 180 if she was still around. She had a massive family. She knew she was loved, and she loved her life, I think, to a certain degree in America, coming from Italy and being poor. And I think that's half the battle, is just finding happiness within yourself and in your mind and thinking about those things, not all the cluttered bullshit. And I talked about this the other day on a podcast where I quit watching commercials for a couple of years, or tried to as much as I could. Then one day I just sat down and watched some TV, and I was watching all these commercials, and I said, Jesus, all these commercials make you do is make you think you're getting sick, you're getting old, you have an issue. I don't care if it's pissing, I don't care, whatever the case. They're constantly coming at you with that you have a problem and you need medicine, you're not getting enough sleep, all these things, you may have this, all these. It's unbelievable how they want to program you to make yourself think that you're a certain way, when the truth is, step aside of that. Like, just leave all that nonsense and give yourself time to figure out who you really are and what you want to be or what's going to make you happy. Now, you may never be happy. That's the way it goes. You may need to figure that out. You may figure out after a long period of time, I'm just a miserable person, or I like to gossip, or I'm full of drama, or I'm an asshole, or I'm a jagoff, as I would say. A lot of men have to realize, and women, that there are a lot of shitty people out there, and they like being shitty. Just accept it. So, anyways, that's my perspective on meditation. I know sometimes I go a little off course, but I think you know what I mean when I say just sit alone and start thinking. Because when you start thinking, and there's a big difference between thinking and thinking clearly. Really, I'm telling you, because you could think about shit all day and it doesn't do any good for you. But you can sit down sometimes for 5 minutes and think clearly, and you can come to a decision that could change the rest of your life for the better. So again, it's not how long you think or necessarily any of that. It's really what you get out of when you do start to think and become self-aware of who you are and what is working for you. I'm just using meditation, fitness, and a lot of different things, but a lot of people hate their jobs, a lot of people hate their life, and some small changes could be huge. But sometimes I think people too are just afraid to acknowledge that they need to change or pivot, but they don't want to. So they keep cluttering themselves or keep filling all these voids, pretending to be a lot busier than they are, when the truth is it's just busy bullshit. So if you look throughout your day, really, and I talk about that with working out, if you work out for 1 hour a day, it's 4% of your day. If you don't have time to take care of your health, which is probably the most important thing in your life, if you can't take 4% of your day, then you have problems. You have a lot more than just, you better get your shit together, especially if you want to live a healthier life, because you can't tell me you're that busy not to take care of yourself for an hour a day. And if you've put yourself in that position, then that's on you. But anyways, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you want to hear any more or see any more of my stuff, you could go to richcelenza.com. You could see my YouTube stuff on there, my program on there. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Did I say LinkedIn? LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, I'm on there as well. You can also agree or disagree with me regarding meditation. I know a lot of gurus out there that'll be like, you're crazy, you didn't even describe it correctly. And you know what? I can give a shit. This is just, I read it, and that's just how I interpret meditation. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's great either. But again, to each its own. It's one of those things, I really believe, that it's just, don't really listen to what everyone else is saying on how to do it or what it's about. Take the time to figure it out on your own. And if you don't like it, move on. There's a lot of other things you could do. Okay? All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Take care, and if you're traveling, safe travels.